welcome to episode 26 of the Tyre Recycling Podcast. We're really getting through these episodes now. And now, as I said, we have arrived at episode 26, 27 even. I'm joined today by Ewan Scott, the editor of Tyre Recycling. Ewan, it's good to see you. Could you tell us what you have got in store for today's episode?
We are interviewing Przemyslaw Zaprzalski, who is the R&D officer for the Polish Recycling Organization. It's unusual because Poland has an EPR scheme, and usually where there's an EPR scheme, the agency manages the recycling, and recyclers are either authorized or not. So it'll be interesting to see why Przemyslaw feels that there's a need for a recyclers association in Poland.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's get straight into it. Here is that interview right now with Przemyslaw Zaprzalski.
So today we've got Przemyslaw Zaprzalski from the Polish Recyclers Association. This is a relatively new body that's been set up to represent the recyclers in Poland. Now, this leads to the first question. Poland has an EPR scheme. So why is there a need for a recyclers association? Very few of the other countries with an EPR scheme have got a recyclers association.
Yeah. You see, we are trying to solve an old problem we are experiencing here in Poland, because since 2005 we have an EPR scheme existing. Nevertheless, this scheme is not defining any financial rules or mechanisms of collection and recycling. So, in fact, this law should be updated, and also the rates of recycling and collection should be upgraded, because till now we have 75% of the obligation of collection and only 15% of recycling. And as far as we know, the usage of tires is only like 11 to 15%. It means that over the last 16 years, we have accumulated at least 160,000 tons somewhere in our environment. So tires are there, but nobody is collecting them. Yeah, so it is why we need to rise those ratios up even to 80 or 90% of collection, and maybe 25% of recycling and up.
Okay, so who are the members of the association, and what do you hope to gain from the communal effort? I don't need you to list all the companies, but what type of companies are involved?
Yeah, we are 11 members of that association, and just to exacerbate the fact that we are all from Poland, the name of the association is a Polish Association of Tire Recyclers, and all of those members are recycling tires for different purposes. And the majority of them, and in terms of volume, are just processing mechanically tires and producing crumb and powders, and also fuels. And the others are processing materials for themselves, and they are producing ready products like mats, wheels, especially with polyurethane, and many others. They are also members who are processing tires for civil engineering applications. Yeah. And we are estimating that probably we are covering something like 95% of Polish market. So this representation is especially good for our legal bodies in our government to talk to, and to make consultation.
Okay, and what do the recyclers see as the main challenges to recycling in Poland? Is it finding the markets for the end products, or is it finding the capital to develop projects?
Mm-hmm. I would say that capital is there, in fact. So probably the most important will be to find new markets, to develop new products, because as we can see, the market is changing, and also the perspective of our customers is changing. We can see a clear shift from big granules, simply speaking, and from fuels and chips to the finer and finer granules and powders with increased purity. The reason is very simple, because end products are gaining in quality. So then our customers also, as a consequence, they are looking for better products. Yeah, so new technologies, and especially value-added applications. This is the goal, and in fact, we need cooperation among our market participants.
Okay. And what are the existing markets in Poland? Crumb rubber, pyrolysis, devulcanization, tire-derived fuel, exports. What do the recyclers currently do with their materials?
Yeah, if you look into the shares on the market, probably the fuel market prevails. Nevertheless, the Crumb is very well developed. Also, powder production is very well developed. Pyrolysis was over the last year, so always a dilemma. That was an economical dilemma. So the viability was not good of that industry. So it is underdeveloped, I would say. But we are aware that carbon black, and especially recovered carbon black, is a huge market. Yeah, the demand is huge. So somebody could have a holy grail if introducing technology to produce pure and acceptable by the industry recovered carbon black. And what else? Devulcanization is very interesting. We have our own experiences in that domain. We conducted 3 years long project developing different technologies of devulcanization, and we can see clearly it will rise. Yeah? It will grow rapidly, as well as the market of additives for asphalt and stone mastic asphalt and road constructions. That will grow.
Okay, so on the rubberized, this is an extra question. On the rubberized asphalt market, is rubberized asphalt's been around for a long time, but we see in Europe and elsewhere, but we see it in Europe, that every country has to reinvent the wheel. They have to recheck the technology.
Yes, I agree.
Recertify. How is the Polish market, the Polish government, how are they approaching this? Are they positive in supporting rubberized asphalt?
Yes, I must say that from the legal point of view, there are no obstacles. Yeah, there are some, but dozen examples of roads already built in that technology. We can see that the United States is moving quickly. Nevertheless, they have experienced some problems just at the beginning. We can see also Aliapur investing in good description and technology blue book available to everybody who might be interested by the introduction of this technology. We are just at the beginning of that road. Yeah, we are organizing our companies, also engaging the tire producers, representation of tire producers, also engaging our association members to build such a blue book to present to road constructors benefits coming out of that technology. Definitely we will finish with some proposals. But to make a summary, probably we miss an accessible technology for everybody. If you can imagine a road constructor who is keeping the technology for himself, So everybody are reluctant to use this technology, in fact. So we need to overcome some barriers, economical, technical, also the perception of the technology. Because the technology definitely exists and performs very well, especially in those days where the process is finally well understood.
Yeah, I think this is a very similar issue to what we see all over Europe. The technology's there. We know it works, but the competition and the mechanisms behind the scenes are creating the problems. It's a while since I've been to Poland, but my impression was that you've built since '89. You've built a great motorway network, and you've got some good motorways. But when you come off the motorways, it's not so good. So that I suspect it's still the same. So that there's a great market there for rubberized asphalt,
yes,
as Poland moves to upgrade its roads.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I must say, maybe I will add. So what we can see clearly, there is a technological regime that nobody is following exactly. And if you miss this technological regime, then you are not succeeding in building roads, and this brings a huge financial risk.
Yeah, of course. Now, what steps are the recyclers, is the Recyclers Association going to be taking to promote tire recycling in Poland?
Yeah. So first of all, we are heading to increase those recovery and recycling ratio to clean the market and to reflect, in fact, the reality in numbers legally approved. But then we are commonly working to develop new products, new markets, educate the market. This is obviously probably the goal of all associations across Europe.
Okay. Now, tire recycling is a global industry. Will the new association look to international markets and to perhaps international cooperation on future lobbying, perhaps, for example, on the next ECHA consideration on crumb rubber when that comes around, as it will do?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we had a chance already to participate into the consultation by ECHA related with microplastics. So we made our first step already. We like the activity, a support activity of EURIC, by the way, the mechanical recycling division. So we are already there, and we will engage our association in those work. If you look into our activity, in fact, we are selling our products all around Poland to all countries, neighboring countries, with the huge focus on Germany and Czech Republic, because they have huge producers of rubber products. And also we are selling to East, to Ukraine, even to Russia, and to Belarus. They have also producers of bituminous products, rubber products, and so on. And also they are using products for road construction. And we are relatively close, so this is an advantage for us.
Okay, and thank you for watching that interview with Przemyslaw Zaprzalski. Ewan, we haven't spoken to anyone from the tire recycling sector from Poland before. And also, you know, EPR schemes are sort of almost being seen little by little as like not the future of how to operate the tire recycling sector, but probably what is considered good practice now. What did you make of that discussion?
I thought it was enlightening because we hear so much about the EPR schemes, and they vary in detail from Sweden, where SDAB have they have a tendering process, and until recently, the winner of that tender ran a monopoly. That was the same in Norway, Finland, and I think into the Baltic states. In France, you have a dominant player in Aliapur, and Aliapur essentially controls the market. It says who gets to recycle and what they can recycle and what they can do with it. In Spain, you have two. You have Cygnus and TNU, and again, they essentially control the recycling market. You're not going to recycle in these countries without being members of these associations. And then we come to Poland, and it's interesting. We don't know a great deal about the agencies in what we used to call Eastern Europe. We take figures from ETRMA that they get from these EPR schemes in the former Eastern European countries, and that's about all we know. So for Przemyslaw to come along and tell us about this Recyclers Association and the fact that the EPR scheme in Poland hasn't made any specifications, it hasn't set prices, it doesn't really seem to have done an awful lot, because I think he said there was something like 142,000 tires. We might have to check on that. 142,000 tires or 142,000 tons of tires lying around the country. That's an awful lot of tires. So the EPR scheme by now should have dealt with all these tires. It patently hasn't. So it seems to have created a situation where the tire recyclers are taking matters into their own hands and saying, like, this is what we are going to do. We're going to make this happen. So the Polish market almost looks like it's going to fall towards the free market that they have across the border in Germany. So it's interesting, and it will be really good to see where they go from here. It was also interesting to hear that the Polish recyclers had already been involved in lobbying the European Commission on the European Chemicals Agency proposals on microplastics, which you may recall put the main use of rubber granulate in infill under threat, and has done for the past 3-4 years. And it's only due to pressure from recyclers and the sports industries that they have allowed the continued use of granulate in infill. But it's only a matter of time before they come around with another reason to look at recycled tire materials, and it needs bodies like the Polish Recyclers Association to speak up for the recyclers.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I agree. I think it was very interesting to gain an insight to what is happening in Poland. It's I suppose it's been rare that we have spoken to people who that taking an active role in tire recycling in what was referred to as Eastern Europe. So it was very good to gain an insight into that side of things, I think.
It's we've been around for a while, and we've met a lot of people from Aliapur, Cygnus, EcoNews, Green Tire, and so on in West, what we'll call Western Europe. And in all this time, we've not really come up with we haven't really made contact with bodies of recyclers in these markets. Occasionally individuals but rarely with bodies coming together to work together. Partly because if I suspect there's a political element to this. If the recyclers are going to campaign to lobby against the EPR scheme, then the EPR schemes are not going to be particularly supportive of what some of these people are doing. And come tendering time, if a company's been lobbying against the EPR scheme or counter to what the EPR scheme is doing, they may find it difficult to get the contract again. So it's a murky old business at times.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, anyway, that's all for today's episode of the Tyre Recycling Podcast. Thank you once again, Ewan, for taking us through that interview. And we hope all the viewers and listeners will join us again shortly with episode 28 of the Tyre Recycling Podcast. Until then, stay safe.